December 2009. The town of Salisbury, located in the state of Maryland, was getting ready for Christmas as usual. The white snow that had recently covered the ground promised the possibility of a full-fledged celebration. At that moment, the residents had no idea that on December 25th, they would not be sitting at a table full of treats, but searching in the forests and swamps for a missing child. The Foxwell family was difficult to describe as exemplary. Jennifer, a single mother struggling to raise 9 children, was constantly absent from work, trying to make ends meet. From the moral and physical strain, the woman occasionally fell into a depressive state and drowned her dissatisfaction in alcohol. No, Jennifer was not a hardened drunkard or a misfit. She was an ordinary middle-aged woman who couldn't always cope with her own life. When social services began to take an interest in the Foxwells, it was decided to temporarily relocate the children under the care of Jennifer's father and her sister, Amy. To accommodate such a horde, relatives allocated a converted barn, which eventually became a quite charming house, divided inside into several children's rooms. In one of them, located at the end of a long corridor near the back door, 2 girls went to sleep on the evening of December 22, 2009, 11-year-old Sarah and 6-year-old Emma. Early the next morning, Jennifer, who was at work, received a call from her terrified sister. Amy reported that around 7 a.m., she looked into the girls' room and did not find Sarah there. After checking all the rooms, she went outside but did not find the child there either. Jennifer instructed her sister to urgently call the police and report the disappearance. The initial examination of the scene revealed a number of key circumstances for the case. Firstly, Sarah's outerwear, as well as her warm shoes, remained in the house. This meant the child could not have left the residence on her own. Secondly, none of the locks on the doors and windows were broken. This meant that someone who was inside the building let the abductor in, or the abductor had their own key. Thirdly, the only thing missing from the house was Sarah's toothbrush. Any doubts about abduction disappeared when tire tracks from a car, not belonging to any of the Foxwell family members, were found in the backyard. In the chaos of the search, Amy suddenly remembered the spare key to the door. It was hidden just in case, under a ceramic figurine near the entrance to the house. However, it was not there. Without wasting a minute, the county sheriff called in all the members of his unit. A statewide alarm was issued. Fresh newspapers came out with notes about the disappearance of the 11-year-old girl. The police urged homeowners to inspect their properties and hang a red cloth in a prominent place so that search teams could see which areas had already been checked. Neighbors' interviews yielded no results. People were asleep and saw nothing that could help in the investigation. The only thing the police could latch onto was the tire tracks left near the abduction site, but analyzing them required time. At that moment, what happened in the Foxwell house became crucial in this story. Little Emma approached her grandmother and said she wanted to share a secret with her. On the night of the disappearance, she woke up to find a man in the room talking to Sarah. Out of fear, the 6-year-old girl pretended to be asleep. Soon her sister got up and left with the stranger. Emma remembered that he was wearing blue jeans, an orange jacket, and white sneakers. After some thought, she added, "It was Mr. Tommy." The entire family knew Mr. Tommy because he had been dating the girl's aunt, Amy, for some time. He often visited the Foxwell house and interacted with the children, so he knew the layout of the children's rooms. Also, according to Amy's admission, he knew about the spare key hidden under the ceramic figurine. The woman had broken up with her boyfriend about a month before the described events, so initially, no one could have thought of his involvement in the case. To law enforcement, Mr. Tommy was known as Thomas Leggs Jr., a 30-year-old unemployed, repeatedly convicted citizen. In 2001, he was prosecuted for molesting a minor and received a 7-year prison sentence. He only served 6 months, after which Leggs was conditionally released for exemplary behavior. Shortly before Sarah's disappearance, the pervert was arrested again. This time, he climbed through the window of a bedroom where a young woman was sleeping and started undressing. Leggs was released on bail before trial. Interestingly, during this time, he was listed in the Maryland and Delaware sex offender registry as high risk of reoffending. On the same day, Mr. Tommy was detained at his parents' house. He categorically denied any involvement in Sarah's disappearance and insisted he had an alibi. According to him, on the night of the girl's abduction, he was hanging out with a friend at a bar where many people saw him. As for Emma's words, Leggs claimed that the child simply made a mistake and unintentionally provided false information. Interviews with bar patrons and staff confirmed that the suspect was indeed there, but left around 1 a.m. His whereabouts afterward were unknown. Leggs himself claimed that he went straight home, but there was no one to confirm this. Detectives quickly obtained a search warrant for Leggs' Dodge Ram 1500 pickup truck. Barely looking into the cabin, they realized they were on the right track because under the front passenger seat, they found a green children's toothbrush and a fruit lollipop. Samples from the seat itself were taken for analysis. To cut a long story short, Sarah's hair and fibers from the pajamas she wore to bed were found on it. It was also determined that the tire tread of this car matched the one found near the Foxwell house. The police managed to find the clothing the suspect wore on the night of the abduction: blue jeans, an orange jacket, and white sneakers exactly as described by Emma. The final nail in Leggs' coffin was the results of the DNA analysis, which showed Sarah's DNA on his underwear. Before kidnapping the 11-year-old girl from the house, the perpetrator had been actively using his mobile phone. According to the cell phone provider's data, he sent meeting requests to several acquaintances, but they all refused. Closer to morning, Leggs' phone connected 3 times to cell towers located on the outskirts of the state, near the border with Delaware. Most of the area was covered by a forest which search teams had to comb through. There was still hope of finding Sarah alive because the suspect had previously only shown himself as a rapist but had never killed anyone. When the search area was determined, volunteers began to gather at the command post. Despite it being Christmas Day, a huge number of people took to the streets to find the missing child. K-9 units with dogs, divers for the nearby pond, and several helicopters were also deployed. However, the search didn't last long. At 4 p.m. on December 25th, Sarah's body was found. She was lying on her back, with her hands clenched into fists raised upward. The hopes of the whole town were shattered. Newspapers reporting the discovery of the remains called Sarah nothing less than the Christmas angel. Leggs was charged on 4 counts, but he still insisted on his innocence and refused to testify. In 2009, Maryland still had the death penalty, so considering the heinousness of the crime and public outcry, the prosecution aimed for it. Leggs was supposed to die by a potassium chloride injection, but this prospect was absolutely unacceptable to him. The only way for Mr. Tommy to save his worthless life was to make a plea deal, which he did. This meant that he fully admitted to all charges, and in exchange, the prosecution did not seek the death penalty. During the trial, it was revealed that Amy Forger, the girl's aunt, initially knew that her boyfriend was listed on the sex offender registry in 2 states. But, as often happens, he managed to convince her of his sincere repentance, and she calmly allowed him access to the children under her care. The court sentenced Thomas Leggs Jr. to 2 life terms, and he will never be released. Considering that he was only 30 years old at the time of the crime, he'll have plenty of time to think. But it's not a guarantee. While in prison, the lover of little girls survived an attack. During lunch, another inmate attacked him with a shiv. According to the Department of Corrections, Leggs sustained head, neck, and arm injuries and required medical attention. Whether this was related to the crime or a personal conflict is not specified. Sarah was buried in a plot overlooking the lake in a white coffin with yellow flowers. About 70 people attended the ceremony. Thank you for watching.